somebody even who defends pornography admitting that these are people who usually don't have other options. And I don't know if any of you here are familiar with Belle Knox. She's a woman that's been all over the media recently. She's a young woman who got into porn. And she's a student, I think, at Duke University. She's from a very wealthy background. And she's been talking about how she loves being in porn, how she chose to do it, how she could do other things, but she just loves sex, and that's why she's into it. But as I said, women like this are the exception and not the rule. And also, this is a picture from one of the first porn shoots that she ever did. It was with a website called facialabuse.com. You can actually find a slightly shorter clip on the internet, like 2 minutes. And I would actually encourage everybody to look that up. If you watch it, it makes everything she says sound so ridiculous about how she loves this, about how she's having a great time. She was in tears in that scene. She was, almost passing out. She was there was literally nothing in her body and on her face that expressed any kind of pleasure. So I think some of the images and some of the videos speak for themselves. So in case you're wondering, these women are poor, why can't they just get degrees and find other jobs? Sometimes they can. There have been individual cases of that happening, but it's very hard. Because we live in a sexist society, a lot of women in general sometimes have a harder time making a living compared to men. And in every aspect of society, whether it's the media, in movies, in music, in everyday life, women are often valued as sex objects. I'm sure that a lot of women in this room have felt that at some point. There's a lot of pressure on us to be sexually available all the time. So women get paid more money to strip and have sex, either with men or on camera. More money than we get paid to nurse, to teach, to flip veggie burgers, to do almost any other job. And as long as that's true, there are going to be women who have to sell sex to survive. As long as the sex industry pays more, and as long as, in general, there's a lot of economic discrimination against women, for some women, their only choice is going to be in the sex industry. That's, their only way to survive. So another element for a lot of women, not all of them, but the estimates vary from 60 to 90%, is childhood sexual abuse. So many of the women in porn have experienced that even before getting into porn. And for them, the abuse that they experience in childhood is a grooming process. So they learn either that men show love through violence or that they exist to sexually please men. And so when you combine that with often poverty, lack of education, lack of other opportunities, porn starts to look appealing because it hits home for them. It's what they've learned. So this is Vanessa Belmont. I mentioned her earlier. She's a speaker and volunteer and a survivor with antipornography.org. And this is something that she told me in an interview that we did. She wrote, quote, "I never met any woman that had a professional career and left it to go into porn just for fun. Many got into it because of financial desperation. Many also had abusive childhoods. I had a roommate who had been on the streets prostituting herself since the age of 14, and by the time she got into porn at 18, it was all she knew." So then there's actually being in porn. There's the poverty and often child sexual abuse that gets them there. But once they're there, they have to survive it somehow. For a lot of women, they use a lot of drugs and alcohol and psychological disassociation to get through a lot of the acts. They basically have to pretend that they're not there. This is Jenny Case. She's another survivor. She's not with our organization, but she's also said some great things. So Vanessa, who is with us, said, quote, "I did coke occasionally, but I was mostly a drinker. And then I got into painkillers. Those are really popular in the industry, especially for women that do a lot of anal. And I smoked a whole lot of weed too. I wouldn't have been able to do porn otherwise." And then Jenny Case, that's the woman you just saw. She said in a video, quote, "There was always drugs or alcohol. You can't do that stuff sober." So I think, that already says something about the treatment in the industry, about some of the acts that these women have to go through. If you need an enormous amount of drugs just to survive it. I'm going to play a video now that was put together by another survivor. Everything is kind of blurred, so you can't see any graphic nudity, but it is emotionally disturbing, so if anybody wants to step out of the room, feel free.
Most of the movies are filmed in private locations where male porn directors are controlling the work environment on a mostly male set.
I can't have alcohol. I can't, it's too much.
Okay.
Oh my god, just come, please, it's really hurting me.
Guys, I don't do ATMs.
Oh.
It's so much, it's so much. It hurts.
Oh, what's the matter? Poor baby. Here.
Fuck! Oh, get the out of my car!
Here. You right?
No, I'm not okay! No, catch all this on camera!
What happened?
God, no!
So, as you partly saw in that video, and I'm going to talk more about this, there's also a lot of abuse that goes on in the industry. And that can take various forms. Sometimes women are lied to about what they're going to be doing. They're told one thing and then they get on set and they're forced to do things that are different or much more extreme. There's a lot of pressure to do really extreme things like, anal, gangbangs, multiple penetrations, because that's where the money is nowadays. And if you're not willing to do that, you can't even get any work at all after a couple of months in the porn industry. So, keeping in mind that many of these women don't have a lot of other economic options, that kind of forces them into these things that they would never otherwise do. And then sometimes also they're given an idea of what they're going to be doing on set, but it's misleading or it doesn't tell the whole story. So this is Cameron Bay. She's a survivor of porn who recently got HIV. There was a recent outbreak of HIV in the porn industry that caused a huge kerfuffle. And she talked about her experience with one porn company called kink.com. They do a lot of extreme BDSM porn. So here's what she had to say. Despite signing paperwork and a checklist of do's and don'ts, I was in way over my head. What I thought I was agreeing to felt a lot different in reality. I was groped by hands I didn't know. There were masked people everywhere, but only the ones wearing wristbands were my approved scene partners. If I balked at an act or found it difficult to perform, I was punished for my defiance, which is the nature of the BDSM scene. I met my breaking point in this particular scene. Halfway through, I had to be untied and calmed down. I was shaking. I felt a catch in my throat when I tried to speak, and I could barely keep the tears at bay. I felt like I'd been beat. Yet I was hugged, inundated with compliments, and told how strong I was for being on the receiving end. I was caned, electrically prodded, and slapped around. I didn't feel powerful. In the interim, I had to decide whether I was going to quit or be a professional and finish the scene. After everything I had gone through, leaving would have made it worthless. So I stayed. So this happens fairly regularly, where women aren't always given a realistic picture of what they're getting into, and then because they usually don't get paid if they don't finish the scene, and because many of them lack other financial options, they're often forced into these things. So it's really, if you think about it, a form of rape, in my opinion, because it's not, you can't give meaningful consent to something that you aren't warned about in advance and that you can't opt out of. If you're not allowed to say no, then that's not a meaningful choice. So there's another video that I want to play. This one is a bit longer, and it's also outtakes from pornography, similar to the other video, but it focuses on two women in particular. And you're not actually gonna see what's happening with the actors, you're just gonna see a still, but you're gonna hear the conversation. And so, and again, this video is actually, in my opinion, much more disturbing than the last one, so if anybody wants to walk out for a couple of minutes, you know,